Hello and welcome again to Let's Talk Science with Pastor Dan. We're going to do a another concept in computer forensics, but this time we're looking at the internet, another big area that cybersecurity investigators have to look at. So what exactly is internet forensics? Internet forensics is defined as using the internet as a means of stopping crime or investigating criminal acts that take place on the internet. The black web is the designation of the place where illegal activities take place often. And so cybersecurity will use that as a way of trying to track down people who are doing things they really should not be doing. All righty. Now, what is the internet itself? It is a network of networks. The original process that began was called the intranet, between nets, and then it just began to really explode from there in the internet. No, Al Gore did not make the internet. All right, now, how do we connect to the internet? It's the way that we get our information connected. Usually most people use a modem. That's a little device and box you have inside your home that connects up. Back in the day, we used to have dial-up. That's that little funky sound that some of you are hearing right now who are my age or older. You can also have what's called broadband. That's the beginning of the process when we start to get big up speeds. And then we have DSL. DSL stands for dedicated service line. So a line specifically set up into your home so that you can connect simply to the internet. We can either do that by Ethernet, that's a little cable that connects directly into the phone lines, or Wi-Fi, that's a signal, and that's where you have to be careful when you get onto Wi-Fi that you're not allowing people to get in your information. All right, now, the last thing that we have is called an ISP. An ISP stands for the Internet Service Provider. These are the people that provide your internet for you. When you're doing investigations, these are the ones that the law enforcement has to work with, because although they want to help stop crime, they also have a responsibility to protect their customer security, so they're not always very forthcoming, very quick to help investigators without warrants and without things along those lines. All right, now, who monitors the internet? This is really interesting, people. I always ask my students, they say, the FBI, maybe Interpol. The truth is, no one does. It is unchecked. Now, people monitor it, but who, they'll watch it, but they don't actually able to police it. They're not able to direct it because of the fact that it is an international system, and that is where we go from there. All right, now, a couple different designations we have on the, for internet providers, different designations we have. The first one is called .gov. That means a government site, whitehouse.gov, senate.gov, anything along those lines. Second is called .mil. That would be navy.mil, army.mil, those branches of the military. Third, we have .edu. That would be education, so universities, schools, things along those lines. .com, those are businesses, walmart.com, amazon.com. Next, we have .org. So those are organizations. Focus on the family.org, those kinds of things. And then lastly, we have .net. Those are the networks that we connect up to. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different. Now there's one that people have been trying to produce, which would be .xxx, and that would be adult sites. The adult industry doesn't want that because people then couldn't go there by accident. They would have to actually know what they're doing and specifically go there with the intention of watching. I know of a site that was set up to look like a government site. Now, I won't tell you which one it is, but instead of using .gov, they use .org. And so people, specifically children, will try to get information and accidentally fall into an adult site. and they know that the younger they can get kids hooked into watching that kind of stuff, the harder it is for them to not watch it. All right, terrible. All right, next, what information can we attend as for the user's history on the web? When we're looking at the internet, specific things that we want to try to catch on to, grab onto, to see if we can find evidence of a crime. The internet cache, that's where, from the internet side, where the person has been and being able to follow that process. Another is cookies. When you have, various sites, the site will often drop positions called cookies that allow you to get back quicker. So if we can find those cookies on your computer, we can identify what sites you went to and help track your internet browsing. Internet history itself. So in other words, up into if you look up here and your internet section, you can find the history. And then from there, you can identify the process on top of your window there. Bookmarks and favorites. I actually heard of a case one time where a woman wanted to try to kill her husband, and she began to look up the internet history, and she bookmarked some of these adverse effects to his medication, and began to try to find ways to cause him to have a heart attack and things along that line. That way it would look natural and not the result of her doing. So those are things that we can look. Now, additional information that the internet provider can provide, things that come from the IP, emails. So when every email you sent is, even if you've deleted it, is still stored someplace, and those can be recovered. Chats, even those Snapchats, the ones that disappear, in reality, they're still stored someplace. They're there forever. IM, instant messages. So those are things that they can look at, try to find out connections, and your search history. But all these things require a warrant. Again, the the internet provider wants to help stop crime, but the truth is they have to protect the security, and they can be sued if they just share things willy-nilly. You saw the recent case where it was disclosed that Apple was giving out information without a warrant. A lot of people left Apple because of that, because of the fact that they didn't like their information being unsecured. So those are all things that internet can provide. Search history, where you're going, things along those lines. All right, awesome. Now, what is one of the main crimes involved in the internet? That would be hacking. What exactly is hacking? Hacking is penetrating into computers for the purpose of obtaining desired information. So in other words, people trying to get into your computer so they can get information from you. What kind of information? Well, how do we stop that? First of all, we use firewalls, different software to stop people from getting in so they can't get into your computer directly. How do hackers try to get around these processes, these devices? They use viruses, programs that come in that work their way into the computer and then are able to circumvent the firewalls. Worms, embedded programs like Trojan horses. I personally was a victim of this. When the internet first came out, there was I had an email, and my email was DFenner at the school that I worked. And somehow they never could figure out where I gone. A worm got into my file. And anybody that ever had gotten an email from me received a request or suggestion that I go to a certain site. And let's just say it's not the kind of site that I would ever go see or I ever should go see. My mother got a suggestion. She calls me up and goes, Dan, you better check this out. Well, they checked my computer to make sure that I hadn't been there on my own. Of course, I hadn't, and they immediately changed my email and they wiped my files. So that's something that can happen. That's something you have to be aware of, and that's why you're always careful what you click on. I don't click on anything that I'm sending an email unless I know that the person sent it to me, because there's a good chance it's a phishing expedition. It's a chance to try to get information, trying to get into my computer. Now, other crimes used by the internet. This one's a terrible child exploitation and pornography. We had an area university professor, not president, professor, who was involved in this kind of stuff. Again, they transmit across the internet these images because it's illegal to go anywhere else. Terrorism, Al Qaeda, ISIS all use the internet to recruit, or to radicalize, to try to transmit information as far as what they want people to do. Espionage, stealing both corporate and governmental. So getting information, the internet is often used in that way. Smuggling, I mean, moving things illegally, what kind of things? Again, we've talked about this before. Human trafficking, drugs, and arms. So those are all things the internet is used for, and what the cybersecurity tries to stop. So with that, we are done. Hopefully not too bad. Take care. God bless.